What's cooking, folks? Vermillion Phoenix here, and today we're jumping into some more Orcs Must Die Unchained. This time we're going to be hitting up Riftlord Throne Room, and we're going to be going into this with Yi-Lin. So one of the things that I wanted to see was how well Yi-Lin actually is able to handle soldiers consistently. This map has a good amount of soldiers, but also some other threats that you generally don't want to stay close to, like firelings, earth elementals, basically things that explode. And because of that, you generally want to make sure that you can maintain your distance. Now, traditionally, I did use things like lances in the setup here. I think they're still not bad. Shield power-ups may be able to be placed at a couple of good places, but I want to see how some of the setups are actually going to fare with some of the trap changes. So we're going to keep the Ballista and the Floor Scorcher in there. Floor Scorcher's overall DPS should be decreased because it doesn't fire as often, but let's see, I think that's pretty good. I don't need anything that's boss specific for Yi-Lin, I don't think. Because she does have a ton of damage hidden in a right click ability. Actually, let's try bringing the Brimstone. It's not a trap that I've used a ton because previously I thought the cooldown was much too long and they recharge individual charges rather than the entire trap, but that was buffed, so you get a charge back roughly just under every 5 seconds now. So that's actually a significant increase. It was just under 8 seconds before, so it's like, I don't know, about an 80% buff. So it's not bad. It's not twice as fast, but still it is much better than it used to be. So going to be routing enemies south, so we can use the Priest Guardian. He has an ice attack, and the Friar, who is arcane. But Yi-Lin has a natural HP regen ability, so I'm going to try to do this without healing items, though there is a health siphon and a viscous tar. The Mage's Clover is useless. So Ring of Storms. And I think for the most part that'll be it. The mana regen ability of the Priest Guardian is also useless here, but mainly using it for the health boost that it gets here, as well as damage. But that should be it for this now. Let's see what we can do. Just checking the traits, we're good. Alright, here we go. As she's raving about the battle we're about to get into, I took Overachiever, so I'm going to grab Healing Moon, which increases the healing that she normally gets. Since I'm relying on the built-in character healing abilities, that's kind of important. If you do not block off certain pathing areas in the rear here, you can block this off. I don't get that. Like, I'm not sure whether or not flags are ordered or what, but my guess is that because enemies normally... Alright, here's my theory. Enemies are pathing from this location, and then they have to reach certain points on the map here. They're initially going to try to take the shortest path to the rift. So what happens is the game probably tries to check for the pathing flags in the order that they are naturally. So if you block off an area that they would normally take further back, then when the game tries to redirect them, it's going to have them attempt to try to take that path first. So the further back you put this block, the more places you're unable to block afterwards. Now, I could be slightly off on that, but I'm pretty sure blocking here or here prevents you from being able to block here. But it doesn't affect this one.
When I was a girl,
So
we didn't have traps. We just had weapons, and we were glad for them.
my guess is that there's no extra flag here. I could be wrong on that one too, but that is what I infer. But in my experience, if I block that, it won't even allow me to block off this area here, which is crazy. Or even this. That is so weird. So it is safer to not do this, but I'm really doing this because I need to make sure that enemies don't waste time going through here and they hit the traps that I set up elsewhere. So
when I was a girl, we didn't have traps. We just had weapons, and we were glad for them.
okay. I think that's pretty much as good as I need it to be immediately. I can probably jade up.
Once again, the Jade Sentinel.
And we can go and drop the Guardian back here just in case anything actually makes it that far.
I shall protect.
And for the tier 2 Weavers, I don't really see the element of renewal being that big because for the most part, Yi-Lin doesn't need the Tempest Strike that much. It's really not that great because of how long the cooldown is. It doesn't do quite as much damage as you're able to get out of Imperial Reach. So I'd probably say that if it needed to be better, like you don't want to buff Elemental Renewal because if you buff Elemental Renewal, like that might make it a bit too necessary, just because it gives you activations for an AoE ability more often. But if you decrease the cost of the ability slightly so that even without Elemental Renewal it gets a bit stronger, that's pretty good. I just don't want it to be a situation where like everybody takes Elemental Renewal because you can spam it more often. Because Moon's Reflection can be triggered much more often than just a slight decrease to the time for that. Like it's 32 seconds. If you were to drop it to say 26, then that Weaver gets a little bit better. But if you were to increase that Weaver to like 3, you need 10 activations total to like pretty much get it usable again, rather than the 16 now, or 13 to 16. Like a bit of time will pass. But I'm pretty much just rambling at this point. I'm going to leave this area open for now just because I don't think enemies should have enough time to get back here. We trapped up the front area pretty well, so I think we can get this started. And I'm probably going to go for Element of Surprise just because Imperial Reach is that good. Though I guess if her cooldown ability is less effective than Imperial Reach, like everything about it could probably use a slight buff. Now, for soldiers, generally speaking, your main issue with dealing with them is going to be the fact that they have that damage protection shield. To make sure that you're actually able to deal damage to them and get through their shield, what you're going to want to do is use White Tiger Claw. In most cases, White Tiger Claw has very little utility, but in that specific one, it is amazing. Alright, so here's pretty much the first place where we want to use another one of these here. We can add a grinder too. And we save the rest of our money for the bottom gates. And so you can see, while it's really easy to deal with things like the the bears, because they don't have damage reduction abilities, soldiers give you the majority of your issues here. At least playing with Yi-Lin. There we go. So because you generate energy so easily, it's perfectly fine for you to spam gear in between your attacks. Okay, so back here, I want to block that off.
We didn't have
Block.
traps. We just had weapons, and we were glad for them.
Block that off and block
When
this
I
off.
was a girl, we
Alright,
didn't
and
have
then
traps.
what I usually like to
We
do
just had weapons.
is that.
Our enemies have broken through again.
So because of the way floor scorchers work, you essentially get everything stepping out of there has the opportunity to be set on fire. If you have kinetic reclaimers in yours, like I believe, whoa, I should, then you can sort of pull everything into a situation where, wow, okay. Have no idea where that guy's going, but it doesn't seem to be.
Barricades are under attack.
Okay, so he's running into, he's just running to the back of that herd, I guess? That's weird. Alright, just because of how much movement I gotta take here, I'm going to
Under attack.
not take the element of surprise, which is probably a bad idea. That's pretty much universally considered the best ability to take here, I think. Or at least it is by me. Alright, so that guy's gone. What the heck was up with that AI? No, let's put that here. Alright, so you and you. And we can make sure everybody gets burnt on their way out. That's good.
We just had weapons, and we were glad for them.
So you don't get a Moon's Reflection to trigger every time for every enemy that you hit with one of her abilities. It only triggers once. So it's important to just make sure that you're in the appropriate range to get it to trigger when you want to get the regeneration to happen. I mean, it's super important if you want to make sure HP stays up, but other than that, her energy regenerates okay on its own. Mainly because of its nature of just regenerating in groups of 5 instead of like 1 or 2 points. Alright. And while White Tiger Claw can't pull off nearly as much damage as Imperial Reach, its ability to add that bleed is entirely what it's useful for. Now, I believe it has a secondary effect, which increases the damage of Yi-Lin's primary attack, but since Imperial Reach can do even more damage than that, still really no point in trying to use it for that purpose. Alright, so let's go ahead and slow everybody here. More grindies.
Our boss is on his way.
And burn them. Alright, so that boss is going to be coming up over here. Alright, so you can see that boss pretty much got murdered in a couple of hits thanks to Imperial Reach. Now, that
After much meditation, this placement fits my strategy.
Unstable Rift is going to be over here. Extra speed on this is actually pretty good just for catching unstables. Ooh, you are getting pretty far. Flip. There we go. Alright, so in the corner here, I like placing Ballista. Primarily because most things are going to get into the area where these haymakers are, and because they can hit other things that happen to be going through. But aside from that, they can combo with the haymakers, catching enemies, and sort of just zap them while they're spinning. Light enemies will take about 4 times the normal amount of damage whenever that happens. If you have some boom barrel rollers, you can okay, for some reason that attack swing just missed. If you have some boom barrel rollers, you can place them above this. If you actually move in here and like use an area attack while those guys are coming out, you can keep them from actually destroying or dealing damage to anything.
Our barricades are under attack.
What are those guys delayed or something? Maybe they got caught on the yeah, that's probably what happened. Probably got caught on the haymakers and thrown back inside. That's what happens.
Our barricades are under attack. They've destroyed our barricades.
Oh well. So you can see right there, the bleed actually does its job. All right. The only thing that I really like in Tier 3 for Yi-Lin is aspect of the Tiger. The bleed dealing additional damage from primary attacks really doesn't matter if, again, the right click does so much damage. And dropping aggro, really, I don't think it's a big idea or a good idea if you can just get out of range. Since the only enemies that really matter when you can move away from them quickly are ranged ones, and since they don't have auto attacks, any of them that have attacks that are a threat at like high speeds are homing, there's really no point in aspect of the shadow. At least not playing solo. If I was in a group and enemies were doing more damage because of it, then I would think about it. So I guess that's the purpose. Because if I remember correctly, playing in a group has enemies' damage increase to make them more of a threat, because combined you have a larger health pool. Ooh, I just missed that fireball and couldn't even see it. Alright, so let's just mash Z here. Whoa. Oh, thought I killed myself. Almost did. Guaranteed. Okay. So
Our barricades are under attack.
there's one guy that made it through. He's heavy. Is he going to fight the Guardian is the question.
Boss minion has entered the battlefield.
Yes, he did, and he lost. Alright, so more than likely he got shot by the Guardian and frozen, which is why it looked like he didn't move any further. But that's good though. It means, again, Priest Guardian doing his thing, holding down the fort. Alright, here's Sarge. So let's hit him with that. Lost most of his health.
Boss defeated.
Easy. I mean, Sarge isn't much of a threat to anybody, but he does have the same damage reduction ability of the soldiers. It seems really weak compared to the actual minions though, so I'm not sure what that's about.
Our barricades are under attack.
Okay, I guess the last thing we need to do is
With these traps,
set that up again.
protect the Empire.
So that sound was firelings.
Unstable rift is opening. Quick, destroy it.
Our barricades are under attack. They summoned a boss minion.
So that worked much better than I expected it to, and I think that's because most of the enemies were floating around on haymakers.
Our barricades
Going
are
to
under
leave
attack.
him to the ballista. Good old dragon lances.
The boss minion is down.
So I want to try something because I've had some weird quirks with this in Chaos Trials. Okay, no, doesn't seem to happen here. I've had people report while playing Chaos Trials that the health drain mechanic seems to work or just stop occasionally whenever Yi-Lin goes into her Jade Sentinel mode. Okay, what else do we have? These guys are in the rear now.
I am Grace. I am Stone. I need healing.
So you can get a lot of like really rapid healing
But I must.
by alternating your abilities fast enough. So we get a movement speed with White Tiger Claw, an increase in Tempest Strike damage with enemies repeatedly hit, which is again pointless because we don't use that move for damage. We use it basically as an area clear. I guess making it stronger isn't bad, but that is inconsistent unless your goal is to like not move around with it and only hit a couple of enemies repeatedly. But Blessing of Health just really seems like not that great. Just because there's a very specific target that you need to reach, and I know it's meant to combo with Moon's Reflection, but in a situation where I'd get under 20% health and I'd need that to happen, as well as it having a 60-second cooldown, it just seems underwhelming. Like, nothing Tier 4 for Yi-Lin seems interesting to me. And I'm not sure what I'd change to actually get it there. If you guys have anything that you'd like to see specifically, or that you think would make it some of these better, let me know. Alright, gonna have to let the Guardian do his job. He probably froze him again. This guy's gonna chase me. Alright, where you at? There we go. Let's poison you, lose you a lot of HP, and you are very, very dead. Super dead. And let's just go with the Blessing of Power. Usually not a fan of weak slows on abilities that I don't use too often. And since I'm only using it as a finisher for soldiers, there's no point in having them move slower, because they should be dying. Alright, anything else that I can put up here to make this easier? I don't really think so. I guess we can add a couple of brimstones here. We can pull up a couple of brimstones over here. That wouldn't be too bad. That was weird. He just sort of vanished while running away. I'm guessing he was on fire, and maybe I couldn't tell. Oh geez, 45 seconds to finish this for the 5 stars. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, because Lysander just came out. He takes forever to get over here, and then you need like another 15 seconds to kill whatever else he has.
The boss minion has been taken down.
Dancing around the shields. Oh, come on. Alright, I think this is it. No. Oh, couldn't survive that. Nope. Too slow. So I know why I didn't 5-star that, and it was primarily because of the haymakers. The haymakers were throwing enemies into the rear and preventing them from dying in some cases. Ooh, Guardian friendly fire, that's bad. And mercenary spawn on death, that is also bad, but that'll be a fun key when I actually get to it. You have to be careful when using haymakers, especially near gates, because they can throw enemies in places where you don't want them. One of those places is going to be back behind the defensive gates, and that causes you to lose par time. You can see that that was only a few seconds. So had maybe a single situation where enemies hadn't been flung back behind the purple barriers happen, I would have 5-starred that. So I guess that's a word to the wise. You know, if you want to drop haymakers and use purely ballista, they're still good. And the extra damage that haymakers make there probably really isn't worth doing anything other than using pounders, or maybe even a quarter pounder, and just having a small pocket of ballistas next to it. Either way, that's going to be Yi-Lin in the throne room. Definitely works, but you'll probably want to do something slightly different than what I did for the reasons that I just mentioned. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll be doing this probably with Brass and talking about things that I expect to change with her in the near future, because yeah, she has some stuff that's kind of broken, and if I get the opportunity, I'll show you what. But until next time, as always, have a good one, folks.